I went to CanJam Singapore 2025, but not as an audiophile. I don't think I am one anyway. I specifically went on a hunt for headphones that has studio chops, reference level, doesn't have to be labeled as studio headphones. So I checked the whole price range and let's just say it was interesting, and here's how it went. Okay, before we dive in, if you have been here before and are not yet subscribed, and if you want to see more of this kind of videos, do me a solid by hitting subscribe, really helps a lot. In case you're not aware, this headphone series is dedicated to cans that can be used for studio as mixing and mastering headphones primarily. I, for one, mainly mix on headphones for a lot of reasons that I have mentioned before, but here's a short version. I am renting this unit and I cannot do proper sound treatment, not to mention that would cost a hefty penny. Second, I want the ability to travel with my mixing gear and not be confined to a specific place. And lastly, I think high quality mid-fi or high-end headphones is very competitive with high-end boutique studio speakers that are 2 to 4 times the price, maybe even more. Good headphones will get you really good mixes and more efficiently. And it covers the full range, so no subs needed. Jumping in, I had very little time because I was still working on both days of the show, so I had to be efficient. I went for those I think will do well in the studio. I didn't care much for price. I just wanted to hear specific headphones. I know there are a lot of arguments as to how mixing and mastering headphones should be, but here's what I am personally looking for. To be clear, I'm not looking for tracking headphones. I am mainly interested in mixing and mastering headphones. So that would generally be open back headphones. I want it to be very detailed, reference grade, revealing clarity, linear as it can possibly get. It has to be easy to EQ, meaning I don't want to do surgical EQ correction just so I can use it for mixing. So very minimal correction. No obvious issues, sort of like the HD600 series. I want something that measures well and has public info on measurements. This way, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. And a bonus, I want to be able to enjoy listening with it as well. First up on the floor, Audio-Technica. There were the first ones there that I saw, so I checked out their new offerings. These are specific studio headphones, R30X, R50X, and the updated R70xA. While I was there, I totally forgot about the R30X, so I only managed to hear the other two. I did ask Audio-Technica for review units. Hopefully, I get them soon. My initial impression for the R50X, I like it. Price to performance, I think it's fair. I don't really have a specific complaint about it. No glaring issues, at least from my first testing. For me, it was actually good, especially for the price. I haven't seen the measurement at this point, but first impression, tuning is fairly linear. Nothing stands out as problematic. By the way, I will link my playlist in the description below if you want to use that or if you're curious to see. It will be in the description. So listening for the first time, I felt there was a tiny bit of dip in the upper mid-range. Nothing concerning for me at least. Could be a good contender, especially for the price point. So this will be like your entry-level mix and mastering headphone. You could get decent mixes on this headphone for sure. I also feel it would EQ well, but I have to try that in studio to confirm. Next was the R70xA. This should be a step up in performance to the R50x. For the price as well, as this is a bit more expensive. Initial impression, it has more body and upfront clarity than the R50x. But there is a slight issue with the first test because this is the first day of the show, but the copy they had on the floor I feel has a slight distortion to the low end. When I was playing back Into Deep by Jacob Collier, there was some buildup in the lows and had some cracks on the subs and the low mids. I would have to get back on this one if I get the review units, but so far it was promising. Next up, FiiO. They have the cheapest planar magnetic release of the year, so this was exciting for me. FiiO FT1 Closed, first impression, really solid headphones. First time listening to it, I was very impressed. I am starting to question like, how is this so cheap? Low end, of course, has more energy than the open back, which is of course common. I didn't feel that I lost a lot of soundstage for a closed back. From what I hear, it's a bit dipped in the mids, could be easily corrected. It's fast and it sounds resolving, at least for first testing. Overall solid, especially for the price. I haven't tested it in studio, but I was thinking this might potentially be the cheapest all-in-one starting budget headphones for studio use. As a close back, this could be your tracking, monitoring headphones. I know I wasn't looking for one, but this has great potential. And then post-mix master as well. I was just wondering if it will seal well and not bleed for vocals use. If you'd like to see that tested, let me know. Or better yet, drop me a budget and I will buy that and test it for you. I sent an email to FiiO about possibly reviewing their headphones, but I never heard back. I guess they aren't interested in showing its chops to studio people. I don't know. Or maybe I'm too small of a channel for them. We'll never know. FiiO FT1 Pro open back. Really impressed. I would pit this against Can's price 2 to 3 times more expensive. It's really clean, clarity is there. A bit of a forward top end, but that is no issue for mixing. Bit of shelf here and there, you should be set. I didn't hear any obvious flaws. Again, we'll talk about measurements in a bit, but this was super impressive for its price as well. Faster in resolving, I guess it's a benefit of being a planar magnetic driver. The FT1 Pro to me has a slight edge versus the R50x in terms of clarity and the high end. It feels a bit more transparent. Price-wise, they are close, but the FT1 Pro is a bit more expensive. FiiO FT7, their current flagship, first impression, top end really stood out, meaning it's a bit bright for my taste, a little bit of a hi-fi man-ish top end, but not by much. Space is there, clarity is there. Sub-bass, not as clear, but it's there. It's punchy enough, just a tad bit less transparent on the low end. Nice soundstage, of course. I feel not as linear. Overall, for the FT7, I was still impressed by how it sounds. It could be a contender, but at this price point, it would be very hard to pick it against the GOAT HD600 series, which is the standing legend price to performance. That is our benchmark for this search. This is the 650, but the range 6XX, 600, and 650 will be very hard to beat. And you can get this for much less. I checked out the MM-500 again by Audeze. I wasn't a big fan of it last time. It was a bit too MIDI for me the last time I checked when I tried it with a Yugo 2. Which is my main DAC amp for mixing. It's also a bit clampy for my liking, so I went with the LCD-X that time, which I still have and still my main mixing and mastering headphone, which is right here. I wanted to try it again, but this time I bought the Mojo 2, and to my surprise, it sounded really good. Somehow it smoothened up that almost nasally upper mids. I can see and appreciate it better now. If you understand that when you are mixing, the magic is in the mids. This is what you want to focus on when you're getting your mix down. If you have the budget and can spring for this, and you really like it, you want clarity, fast resolving, this is it. This could be your endgame headphones for mixing and mastering. Very easy to drive. If you have a decent interface, you're set, you're ready to rock. If you have a budget or entry-level interface, I'd recommend to go for the Mojo 2 with this. Really easy to set up for mixing. Some would argue you wouldn't need correction for mixing. I could see that too. But would I swap out my LCD-X for the MM-500? Maybe. I like to EQ for mixing and enjoy listening to music without EQ. So in that regard, I would still keep my LCD-X. Next up, Abyss Joal. This was something new from Abyss. I forgot to bring my adapters on day one, so I wasn't able to use my Mojo 2. They only have the 4.4 connectors. My issue is the amp setup they had feels a little underpowered for my taste. So I feel I wasn't able to judge it fairly. But as far as that short test I had with it, it was really impressive. But something about that tuning that would make me skip it for studio use. It feels lacking. It may be the amp they have, but the revealing clarity I was looking for isn't there. The upfront detail wasn't to my liking. I might have to try it again, but at this point, I was thinking if it wasn't obvious the first time, maybe that wasn't it. I felt it's not as critical or as technical for my taste. Again, might just be the amp, or I might be confused at this point. I don't know. Now on to Hi-Fi Man. I'll be honest here, I know there is a lot of fans of the Sundaras, the XS, Aria Stealth, and all. Very respectable headphones, of course. I have a friend who's an audio engineer. He has the Sundara and he likes it. He uses it to compare his mixes with. But for me, personally, and don't take it as an offense, I would skip on many of those for my use and for the reasons and points that I have stated before. But again, all personal preference. There is one that I was curious to try though, and that is the Arya Unveiled. I didn't try the other Unveiled because I didn't have much time, and frankly, I might not have the budget for that. Or if I do, I will be looking at other headphones. We'll skip it for this time. So first impression, this is actually the first Hifiman that I am really impressed with. The cheaper models before this feels lacking of body clarity. Again, that upfront detail and energy I was looking for. Not to say they sound bad. You could also argue that you can EQ correct it, but this is full sounding from the box. And I was looking for the least amount of EQ correction needed. First impression, I can't find any glaring fault. The mid-highs are forward enough for me, maybe a tad bit, but that's a quick and easy fix. Of course, that's personal preference. This one hits the gas, definitely. Easily gets to the top 3 on the floor that I'd personally buy, to be honest. The top end on this, I don't mind, actually. Usually Hifiman, I would say, a bit too bright, but I'm okay with this one. Again, this will be just a quick shelf fix if needed. So for sure, this one would be definitely a contender. It looks easy to EQ, clarity and detail is there, space, soundstage, it ticks all the boxes for me. That was all I could try on the first day. So on to the second day, I got to meet Rob Watts of Chord Electronics. I introduced myself as one of their pro endorsers. He was very excited to share about his upcoming project with Chord Electronics, which I don't actually know if he should be sharing those things with me. Some of the things he was mentioning was going way over my head, to be honest, but definitely a new exciting project from them. He was collaborating with his son working on this project, who is also a studio engineer and producer, so they really know and understand what the studio guys need. It's definitely a new high-end DAC and amp for professional studio use that has all the bells and whistles with an exciting hardware feature. Features that you don't even see on the new Chord Alto. And honestly, I don't know if I can share these info, so I'm keeping it all to myself for now. So I moved on to check the DCA booth, Dan Clark Audio. I tried the Noire X and the DCA E3, some of the most highly regarded closed-back headphones. My first impressions of the Noire X is a little bit too rounded for me. It lacks that energy and clarity that I am looking for. Again, studio use. Enjoyable to listen to for sure, just not what I would get personally. Low end is there, but a bit behind, not overly present, which was surprising for a close back. Some tracks feel full and well presented, so this one will pick and choose what sounds great. But if you like the type of tuning it has, why not? It's a bit better than the DCA Aeon, which I own personally. And again, it can be revealing at times and show weakness in the mix. Price-wise, this is cheaper than the DCA E3, of course. It can be a candidate for mixing if you're looking for a close back. The E3 will be more technical, easier to correct for mixing. Having said that, the DCA E3 has got to be the best close back I ever tried so far. Granted, it's a bit too bright for me, just a tiny bit. Again, preference. Side by side, it feels a bit more complete versus the Noire X, which was lacking some, beef and body compared to the E3. It's very comfortable, much more detailed than the Noire X. Soundstage actually is impressive for close back. I feel this one will take EQs well. Separation and detail is great. Even with BC low end, you can pick apart what's happening in the instruments. So bass, kicks, synths, what have you. You would be able to distinguish the differences there and what's happening. Is really good and out of my price range. But if you need a close back for mixing and mastering, this will literally enable you to mix anywhere. I have mine just for A/B testing, and honestly, I just got it for really cheap. Depends on what you're looking for. I tried one Focal, the MG Focal Pro. It has been out for a while. I skipped it the last time I was on the market for one because I feel it was too warm for my taste back then. It needs a bit of EQ when mixing, and I feel it would also need EQ when listening as well. So a bit of a toss-up for me. Again, that's personal preference. Trying it again this time on the show, I actually don't hate it. Again, it's just a bit warm, especially on vocals, so that, upper mid-range. It's a narrow soundstage for open back. Again, for what I need, I wanted to be able to sort of emulate the sounds of speakers, high-quality speakers in front of you. The clarity is there, presence is there. I personally know some engineers who swears by this. So yeah, this will be a personal preference. I skipped this headphone for my use, but this is not to say it isn't competent for studio. In fact, this might actually be what some of you are looking for. Still give it a shot. If you're able to test it, you might like it. Down to the last couple of headphones I tried. ZMF Atrium Open. This one is new to me, but first impression, I think this checks all the boxes of what I wanted in a headphone. Clarity, revealing, technical, yet very enjoyable to listen to. As far as first impression, not an easy one to drive. It looks like it needs power. I bought the Hugo 2 on the second day, and I was almost on the limit volume-wise. I was on the clear blue, almost on the white, on the dial. That means it's almost on the very end, volume-wise. It has nice soundstage. It's punchy, detailed. Nothing sticks out. I don't see any outright flaw, at least on first try. It's lightweight enough, especially compared to my LCD-X. This is very heavy. It was detail galore. Like really, you can pick out everything that's happening on the mix, reverb, compression. I mean, it was all there. Some mix are exposed, meaning if the mix wasn't right, you would know it right away. Tuning-wise, I have nothing to fault. If I had the money back then, because of course, CanJam, you get a better deal than retail price. If I had the cash right there, I would have gone home with that, definitely. I also tried the ZMF Caldera Closed. It's a bit narrow, it's a bit warm, needs power. You need a good amp for that. Sounds great, especially on snarky, poppy tracks. Punchy, full low end, very clear. The low end is a bit more forward. Top is crisp, separation, really good. I still wouldn't pick it over the Atrium. You're in like really high-end price territory. So if I would choose, that would be the ZMF Atrium. The one thing I missed trying is the Meze Imperial 2. That one, as far as specialist headphones go, or audiophile headphones, by far it looks the coolest and the most sleek. Just on looks alone. I will have to go back to the shops to try that. I did not check the HE1 because I tried that before. I didn't have time for this round, but that was an eye-opening experience for sure. I missed trying the AUN as well. I will try to see if I could review that. A couple of days later, I went back to try the FT1 Closed at a shop. It had some boomy low mids on some tracks. It goes away with EQ correction. But for close back, I went with a Aeon X, as you see here. I got it for really cheap anyway. So this is just here for A/B testing, also for tracking. Also just part of my collection. I sold my DT770 for that. If you want to hear my perspective on this, let me know in the comments below. For my top three, that would be the FiiO FT1 Pro open back. Price to performance, that was super impressive. This is in no particular order, but ZMF Atrium could be your endgame mix master and just something you'd lay back with while maybe having coffee, you know, just enjoying the music. And lastly, probably the Arya Stealth. Again, no particular order. Those are the top three that I like. I didn't specifically try IEMs for this show. I was just mainly focusing on headphones. I have the 64 Audio 812. I would still pick an open back headphone for mixing rather than a high-end IEM. That's just my opinion. Finally, let's go over measurements and see how they fare. For benchmark, let's look at the HD600 measurement first. This is the standard for studio headphones, mixing and mastering. I don't think it was even dubbed as studio headphones when they released it at the time. But even at 2025, current price to performance easily beats out headphones priced 2 to 3 times more. If you're watching this video and you just want a simple recommendation, any of the 600 series, 600, 6XX, 650, any one of those, pair it with the Mojo 2, you are done. You have EQ and crossfeed on the Mojo 2. But if you're using something like an Apollo Gen 2 or similar, you don't really need the Mojo. Just get SonarWorks Sound ID for correction and then a crossfeed plugin. That's all you need. We'll talk more about price tier systems for headphone and mixing mastering on a different video. If you have questions about that, let me know in the comments below. I'll try to address it in the following video. Before we dive deeper into the graphs, if you're not aware or not familiar with headphone graphs, I would highly encourage you to watch How to Read Frequency Graphs for Headphones by headphones.com. The graphs are there to just help us see the performance of the headphones. Not really to decide whether or not to get the headphones. Although if it's extreme, if it reads or measures really bad, then that's something to be aware of. But graphs are really half the story here. You still need to audition them, try them. Your ears are still the better judge. All of these things help us make sound decision on choosing our headphones for mixing. Also, the fit in your ear shape, if you're wearing glasses or not, all of these things affect your listening experience. Just take note of these things. Another thing when looking at graphs is what we call the Harman target. It's sort of a neutral in a way because it's the average of what consumers prefer to hear, or it's the preferred target curve. But if you think about it, if you're mixing for consumers, then we should know what the listeners like to hear, basically, right? So yeah, we can think of it as the target curve, especially for, not just for mixing, but you can correct your headphones as well to get to that curve. That way it sounds great as well. Headphones are built exactly to how our ears are shaped. So those dips and peaks that you are seeing is actually intended. So I don't know if you actually should make that flat when you're mixing. I would just personally correct for Harman target for mixing. Again, there are deviations. So if you look at HD 600 measurements, looking at the graph here, the dotted line here is the Harman target. The one weakness of the 600 line is the lack of low end. So you'd have to push this a bit, maybe 2 to 3, maybe even 5 dB from the 20 hertz. That's the only thing you need to correct for this headphone. The rest actually measured relatively great against the Harman target. The dip here is about 9K. That one is designed to be that way if you're listening with headphones. If the 9K is up, then it would sound sibilant or a bit too bright or too harsh. It's still within that preference bounds. And then it goes up again to that 10, 11K and then goes down from there. Because if it goes up and straight, I don't know if you could hear 15K or up there, it would just give you that airiness. But if it's too much, then it might give you ear fatigue as well. So for reference, the 600, 650 series, this is what you would call a headphone that measures well. Apart from the weakness there and the low end, this really measured well. I would EQ that with a Mojo. This is my other DAC amp, really, really small. This has 4 EQ settings. Let me show you the settings here. Here. The chord operates on this color scheme, that language that you need to understand. It's not super user-friendly, but once you get to know it, it works well. Another thing I love about the Mojo is the EQ sounds very natural. You don't have surgical capability of EQing. You actually just have shelf. So if you're looking at the bass, 20 hertz, the red setting. On the right would be, if it's white, it's 0, if it's clear. And then if you want to boost it up, then you're gonna go up here to the orange, to the yellow, to the blue. Blue will be +7 or green +6. If I'm using the HD 600 with the Mojo, I will be boosting it up to maybe the yellow. That's all I'm gonna do for the 600 to make it even for mixing. Because if you don't do that, this happened to me before. I mixed my bass a bit too hot, so it sounds okay with the 600 for me. But then if I played it against speakers or with subwoofers or with my AirPods, I didn't realize that my bass was already too hot. You need to fix that before you mix so that you can judge correctly. Well, here's what you can do if you don't have Sound ID. Because lately I've not been using the Sound ID because I really don't like the sound profile that it creates. This is just a sample project that I'm doing. There's no mix effect yet. Let's just say you're about to start. What you would do is you would add your EQ there for your mastering chain, right? You have your compressor. I'm using Shadow Hills. And then you have your LUFS meter. And then at the very end of that, you would have your EQ. Okay, this is the raw measurement. What you're looking at here is the natural PINA gain up here on the 2-3K area, and then a bit of dip here in the 9K. These are the target deviation considering how our ears interact with frequencies. So again, the gray path there is the preference bounds. Whenever your headphones measure within that bounds, is generally considered to be good. So as you can see, we are losing a lot of sub or lows for the 600. Here's how I would EQ that if you don't have Sound ID. If you are mixing with headphones, I don't think you really need it. That's just my opinion. What I would do here, considering the rest of it from 800 or 100 falls perfectly in line with preference bounds, what I would do there in your DAW, whatever DAW you're using, in this case I'm using Logic, again you would have whatever you need for your master chain. And lastly, your channel EQ. I would bring this to about 80, just do a shelf here, right? Bring it to about 80, right around there. Comparing that to our graphs. This is where our graph is useful. So 80 here, although you have to check where your sources are. It has to be, of course, reliable source. I would maybe go to 80 or maybe even 100, and then start increasing there. Maybe I bring it down to like 80. You can start increasing there maybe about 4 dB. I think that would be good. So this line here is about 5 dB there. 4 or 5 dB should be good. That's it. I don't have anything else to like do for the rest of that. If you have the Mojo, and then I would use the 125 shelf, but again, that may be too much. It might be better to just put an EQ to the end of your master chain here and then bring it up. That's the only correction there. That's the reason why the 600 or the 6 line from Sennheiser are legendary. They measured well, react well to EQ. That's all. That's all you have to do there. I don't think you really need to make all of this flat, because if you make that really flat, then you would lose all those like intended deviations, especially on the upper range. I don't know, it's gonna be up to you how you take all of this. Lastly, before we look at other charts briefly, this is also the reason why I don't just have one headphone, I have 2. This is here just intended to A/B and then how it sounds, so sort of like a hi-fi headphones basically. So having a good headphones, but being able to A/B it, not just with headphones, with speakers, A/B it with AirPods or TV, or you know, have all these options. Those would be your like insurance sort of when you're doing this mixes, especially on headphones. The reason why I spent this much for headphones is because what I learned when I was studying mixing engineering and all this. If you're planning to mix seriously and make maybe a living out of it, or like really do that professionally, you should invest in good quality speakers. In my case, I went the route of headphones, but great quality headphones. Okay, moving on, just quickly browse through everything. Let's do R50. This is the other one that I found from DIY Audio Heaven. You just have to know and check your sources. So this is how it measured. The thing here with the R50, R70, it's very new, so there's not a lot of graphs and measurements out there. But if there's a source that you trust and you can ask for measurements from them, then that'll be good. But for R50, for this chart specifically, every source has a different measurement and shows a different character to them. So I don't know, you would have to look at this with a grain of salt. But if I'm looking at this chart, 9K, this will be very shouty. 9K bump right there. I'm assuming this is a compensated chart. There's also a loss of low end here from 60 onwards. Pretty linear all throughout, but there's a big 9K bump there, which would make it shouty. The thing is, like, I didn't get that on the floor when I was listening to it. So I don't know about this chart. Let's look at another chart. This one is pretty wild. Is way out of target. That's why you have to look for charts and you have to test your headphones, because if I'm looking at this, I wouldn't really want to get this headphones, because look at that. R50 is like way out of bounds on the 4K. It's gonna be too MIDI, and then of course 9K dip, that's good. But this is wild. More mid-energy than the R70. R70 dip there on the 4K. You won't really lose much there. But it looked like it has more bass than the 600. So 50 here, just bump up the 20 by maybe 2 or 3 dB. The dip here on the 9K, that's normal. That's relative ear deviation. If you're just going to base this on this measurement, this is way out of target, the R50. The R70 measured better compared to the R50. The thing is, like, I didn't really get that when I was listening to it on the floor, so I don't know. Here's another Harman target measurement. This is what I mean, like very different measurements from very different sources. This one by Gadgetry. This one looked really good. This is probably closer to my experience personally when I was listening to it. You would still need to bump up your low shelf there just from 60 or 50. 2 or 3, 50, you can go 5 dB if you want. This is where the importance of referencing comes to play. I would recommend to put your reference song in your mixes. While you're doing this correction, check your reference song within the mix, within your DAW. That way it's just there, right? So you have your correction on the master, and then you have your one track there for your reference song. And then you can see if you are well within reason when you're correcting. So I would say this is closer to what I've experienced, but the R70 looks a bit dipped on the 4K. I may or may not bump that on my correction, but from 8K up, this is good actually, measured well. In terms of this measurement, in your mastering chain, I would go 3, maybe 4K. Just do a bit of like bill on the 4K there. Just Very short bell. So, and then move your shelf here to 60. Let's see. Maybe in 50 plus 4 or plus 5. What I was saying was like in your track up here, add one track there. Add one track, then call it reference. Just have it on mute when you're mixing, but when you're referencing, your ears get used to your mix, so you think it sounds good, but when you check your reference, whatever reference song that you're really familiar, then when you go back to your reference, then your mix sounds like, oof, rough, right? Okay, so that's just a good practice. One tip there. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Clark Audio Aeon X is the one that I have. I just put it here for lols. I'm not sure if this is like Harman target. Harman, oh, 2018. The thing with the Harman is like they keep updating it every now and again. But 2018 was flat here. But there's a lot of energy here on the AT. I wouldn't really do any correction for the DCA. Maybe on the upper end here, because 10K up, I can hear that. That's a bit irritating to me. So I would bring that down. But apart from that, I'll just use the Dan Aeon X just to AB. What's our next one? Oh, okay. This is Harman combined. Yeah, it looks good. A bit of a low end, the energy end on 100. Maybe you can pull that down. The rest looks very good actually. 9K dip there. Again, normal deviation. But from 10K up, I would bring this down. For my preference. Even for listening, because like I can't with that with that high end. FiiO FT1 close back, a lot of energy on the 110. I would pull that down. Maybe even the low a bit down. Just a tiny bit, because this can be a tiny bit excessive on the low end. I would bring this down from 120, maybe 120, 130. So that would look like this. But instead of plus, we're gonna go like that. Tiny bit, maybe 1 or 2 dB around there. Because that energy here on the 110, 120, it tends to get boomy on some tracks and it can get annoying. That's just for me, so it depends on how you like it. And then there's a bit of a loss here on 2, 3, 4. Still okay actually, this one's no problem. So you're gonna test it for yourself, but I think that'll be around 4K. So we're gonna bump it up maybe 1 to 2 dB. That's it, minimal correction. But yeah, I did feel in here this lingering boomy part depending on the songs that you're playing. But if it hits 120 hertz, then it's gonna stay there and make it sound like that. All right, looking at raw graphs, same here. It's well on the upper end of the preference bounds for the low end. This is still the FT1 Closed. We're just looking at the raw graphs here. This dip here, still okay actually. You can lift it up, especially if you're mixing. You want to hear that upper mids magic area that you want to be hearing and listening to. Other than that, actually the top end should really well. Looks really good. That makes this a good candidate for like all-in-one. Actually add that to my top 3. Now make it top 4. FT1 Closed. But yeah, you could use it as for mixing. You can use it tracking, monitoring. Yep, very good. FT1 Pro, open back. This one is, again, headphones.com. Big dip there on the 2K. You want to recover that. This is compensated graph. Let's look at the raw graphs. You can bump this on about 30, maybe 30. Bump it up to maybe 2, 3 dB. We can start there, 30, 35. And then this dip here on the maybe 1.5, 1.8K. Right there, just bump it up 1.7. That's pretty much it. You can even do it on 2K, just wider bell. Top end looks good to me. Normal deviation there on a 9K dip. This dip here on the top, you won't really hear that. But if you want to shelf that on about, you know, you can do a tight shelf there, bring it up a bit. So my EQ would look like that for correction. For the FT1 Pro. FT1 Pro, the same grass measurement. The other one is BNK, or still grass. Oh, different unit. Their deviation, it looked the same to me. Oh, the top end. Oh yeah, the top end. Slight variation on different models. So I guess quality QC issue from the factory maybe. Just a tiny bit of deviation, unit deviation. Okay, let's go to MM-500. This is another headphone that sort of proves my point that you don't really need to flatten your EQ response on your headphone. The MM-500 is specifically made for mixing and mastering. That means you're just gonna ruin it if you flatten. Again, my opinion. So if you look at the graphs here, this is the Harman target. It has enough low-end energy there. Goes straight until 1K. Then we have the Pina gain here. Nothing unusual. It goes a bit up from the target curve from 3K. That makes it, for me at least, a bit MIDI sounding, nasally even, but you can just bring it down a bit, maybe 3K there. Normal dip here on 9K. It's still well within Harman target. This bump right here, you don't even hear that, don't think. If I'm gonna correct for that, let's see. From 70, maybe from 50K, just a tiny 1 dB, that's it, that's all you need if you want to. And then for 3K, I would bring that down maybe half dB or something, just a tiny bit. You don't really need anything else, and then turn off the shelf there. That is a well measuring headphone right there. It's a high-end headphone though, so cost in Singapore is about 2.5 SGD. It's gonna depend on you if it's well worth the investment. One of the best measuring headphones by far, especially against the HT600. But yeah, is it worth that amount for you? That's gonna depend on you. This is a measurement against the LCD-X, one that I have. LCD-X is the green one. It is a bit up on the low end. This is what the LCD-X is basically claimed to fame. The low end is there, but very detailed. You can pick out what's happening on the low end, even with busy passages. Since bass guitar, kick, you can hear all those details. It goes straight, very linear until 1K. Not as MIDI up on the upper mids. Well controlled, I think. That's my opinion. Goes up on about 11 something K there. I like the airiness, the clarity there on the top end. For me, this is my headphone of choice. My only gripe about the LCD-X is a bit heavy. That's it. You could get the MX4, which is the lighter version of that, but it's more heavy on the wallet. So I don't know. I might just get another headphone with that price difference. Okay, Arya Unveiled. This is the one that I was excited about. Looking at the raw graphs here, it's under the preference bound for the low end. That's normal for open back. There isn't really a lot of open backs that has low end energy. So you want to bring that up by a bit from 100. So we're gonna go 100. Yep. And then you want a wider. You can do a wider curve there, I think. Yeah, about 1. Let's do 1. Maybe 1 or 2 dB. That's it. Not a lot. Then upper region, I'm okay with that. Normal dip. The 9K here didn't dip. It dipped on 11K. So, So this might sound a bit sibilant or a bit high, but if I remember right, I was okay with it. I'm not sure if I listen to the tracks that are mixed a bit brighter. So, but if I remember well, when I was on the floor, I did like the top end for that. So I might actually just turn off the high end correction. That's very minimal correction right there. That's what I'm saying. That I think the Arya has good potential. Arya Unveiled. There's a lot of different versions of Arya. I didn't like the rest. But this one is very promising. Again, you can't base your decisions just on graph alone. You have to listen to it. Your head shape or head fit, ear fit, and all this. A lot of different factors to consider. To me, that really looks solid. This is the compensated graph. It looks more dipped here in the 2K. I might bring that up. In that case, I will bring this up here. Shorter bell right there, because you want to hear the upper mids. Again, that's important when you're mixing. Upper mids is the key. Okay, moving on to Joal. Oh, no measurements found. I didn't find any trusted measurements, third party. So I think I didn't really see any. But okay, Noire X is the more expensive brother of this, the Aeon X. Noire X measured fairly well. Went out a bit on 110, but that looks fine to me. This upper energy here, again, all this DCA. I know some of you guys prefer that bright, airy top end. I don't particularly like it, so I will shelf out this 10, 11K maybe. So that will look like this. If I'm gonna mix with that, I will look like that. Bring that down. That's it. That's it for the Noire X. But then again, it didn't sound technical or detailed to me, so I wouldn't really use that as primary mixing headphone. So even if it measured well, apparently it measured really well, I wouldn't really rely on that for mixing, because clarity, technicality, detail isn't there. Better than the Aeon X for sure, but it's not very apparent, at least to my ear. I may need to test it again, but that's my impression at least. Aeon X apparently measured well too. I think we've talked about this before, but yeah, there's a lot of built up energy here on 100. I wouldn't really care about this one because I passed that for main mixing. I just have that for A/B test. Okay, the E3. E3 actually, wow. Oh, the stealth. The yellow is the stealth. The blue is the E3 average. That really looks good. Nothing to correct on the low end. Top end looks nice. Wow. It's very compliant with target. Wait. Let's zoom in. Okay, this is from Audio Science Review. They have a lot of measurements as well. Well within the target curve here. Left and right measurement, basically left and right ear right there. That's the deviation dip right there, 9K. That's fairly normal. It goes up on 11K here. This actually would bother me. I got this when I was listening on the floor. It's a bit bright for me, so I would pull this down for the Dan Clark E3. But again, high end. This is very detailed, at least to my ear. This has your clarity, information is there. You could really decide on have good mixed decisions based on these headphones. If you want a close back, that's one candidate right there. I can't afford that, at least for now. But if I have a chance to buy that, I probably will. My wife is not listening. Good. She heard that, she says. Okay, so I won't buy that. On camera, okay? Alright, this is the Focal MG Pro. Actually, Focal MG Pro looked really good in the charts. This is the 2018, from the 2018 Harman target. Looks well within the target. This 4.5 dip right there, for me, it made the vocals a bit, just a tiny bit warm, too warm for my taste. That's the word. Personally, again, as I've been emphasizing throughout the whole video, that upper mid region, I like to have that. Again, you could EQ that, no problem. MG Clear Pro looks different. Probably this is the latest Harman target. So based on this chart, you're gonna have to bump up your bass there. The upper mids here looks okay from this chart actually. Again, you have to decide this on both the charts and your hearing and listening. The 800 is just here as like a high-end HD 600. So the Harman target, it's really well within the Harman target. You still need to bump up the bass from 100. That's the only thing you need to do. So HD 800 correction from 100, maybe bump up to 1.5 to maybe 2, 3 dB, up to you. That looks good. 800. Another great contender for mixing. Yeah, so I hope this makes sense. I know this video is probably going to be very long at this point, but if you got it to the end, thank you for watching. I hope I made sense with all my blabbering. But yeah, you just need to, you know, audition your headphones if you have a chance. I know not a lot of you have a chance to do that. What you could do is, you know, buy used and maybe do some headphone rolling. Is that a thing? You can try. If there's a good return policy, then you can buy and then return it if you don't like it. Hopefully this helps with your research on mixing and mastering headphones. I have just confirmed Audio-Technica. I will be getting that next week, so I'm looking forward to that review. Stay tuned. Again, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I try to put everything here that will be helpful for everyone, but if I missed anything, write it down in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the comments. So yeah, hope that is helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next project.